Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who saw my last video, you would know that I am in a new location. I moved in with my best friend's parents, who have gratefully let me live here. And yeah, so today I just wanted to do kind of an update on how I'm doing with my Nexplanon. I filmed a video almost 2 years ago now, maybe a year and a half ago. I don't know, but I did film a video that got quite a lot of views and it seems to be helping out you guys. So I figured I would film another video updating you on some of the same things that I've been dealing with, some of the different things I've been dealing with, and how my Nexplanon has changed after being on it for over 2 years. I got Nexplanon in February of 2018. I am just over 2 years of being on Nexplanon and having it in my body. In February of 2021, that's when I'll have to get it out, and if I want to, get a new one put in or figure out where I'm gonna go next with my birth control journey. So obviously I am not a doctor. I cannot tell you realistically whether or not Nexplanon is right for you. That's something that you have to talk to your doctor and gynecologist about. But this is just my experience with everything that I've gone through on Nexplanon and just trying to give some perspective of some possible things that could happen if you decide to go on it. As I talked about in my other video about this, some of the possible side effects are a lot of bleeding, or not getting your period, all those kinds of things. Very similar to if you were to get an IUD. I couldn't think of the word IUD, I was thinking UTI, but I know that's not correct. It's very similar to if you were to get an IUD in. Some of the symptoms are a little bit different, depending on the person. I personally did not have a lot of bleeding. Kind of. So we'll get into that. Some of my symptoms when I first got it, I did have a lot longer of periods. So my periods would last for probably like twice the amount of time that they normally do. So 14 days, I would say. And usually it would start with some spotting for probably like 4 days, go into a normal period cycle, and then end with spotting for about the same time, around 4 days at the end. And that was kind of annoying, but I was also experiencing not getting my period every single month, so it was quite comparable to having a longer period but just getting it less often. Some people might experience that, some people might not. Really depends on your body. It can depend on a lot of things. It can depend on exercise, your weight, just how your body is and how your periods function. Anyway, all very dependent on your body. You don't really know how it's going to react until you actually get the implant. Basically, since first getting it, I've been experiencing a lot of the same symptoms. None of them have really gone away, although they have changed a little bit. I would also say that nothing is consistent or more consistent than it was when I first got it in and I first made my video on Nexplanon, the pros and cons of it. I am still getting periods sometimes every month, sometimes every other month. It really depends. There's really no pattern. I don't know how to track it, so it's really, there's no rhyme or reason to when it's going to come. It just does. I will say that the bleeding has lessened, so I'm having shorter period times even when I am not getting my period every single month. I would say that I have maybe like 1 day of spotting at the beginning and then a normal period length and then 1 day of spotting at the end. So that's definitely nice. But I am still experiencing that kind of like beginning and ending spotting. So I don't know if that will go away for you. Some people have excessive bleeding for months straight. I had a friend who went on it and had to take pill birth control on top of taking her Nexplanon in order to stop herself from bleeding. And she ended up getting the Nexplanon out in the end, so it really varies across people, but This is just my experience. Something that also hasn't changed for me is getting excruciatingly painful cramping in kind of the in-between time. Again, this is something that really depends. As I said in my last video, for a really long time I was having cramping in between. So when I would normally have my period, I wasn't having the bleeding, but I was having excruciatingly painful cramps to where I would have to lay on the bathroom floor because that's the coldest part in the house, so I didn't overheat and I didn't throw up, and the pain was just so strong that I would have to take Advil or like extra strength Tylenol Advil every like 3 hours, extra strength Tylenol every like 5 to 6 hours. So that was really, really bad, and continues to be really quite awful, which is probably one of the biggest downsides for me to the Nexplanon versus just taking pill birth control. Obviously, as I said before, the benefit of having the Nexplanon instead of the pill birth control is that I don't have to think about taking my pill birth control every day, which was something that I really struggled with, and I didn't really enjoy having to think about taking pills every day. But if you are someone who has to take other medications for other things like anxiety or depression or mental illness, or if you have a chronic illness or anything like that, you might have an easier time with pill birth control if you are suffering from severe period cramps. That's why I ended up going on birth control really early on in the first place, because I wanted to stop my awful cramps that would do this to me. It doesn't seem to be helpful for cramping at all. I would say that the cramps that I used to have before I went on pill birth control were worse than the cramping that I'm having with Nexplanon, but I'm still throwing up from the pain a lot of the time. I'm still getting really hot and sweaty and basically having hot flashes because of the pain, and having to live hour by hour to take my Advil. I did recently, in the last few days, also have another kind of weird episode that was like period cramping but was very different. Like, it wasn't exactly period cramping, and I was a lot like hotter and having more hot flashes, so I don't know if it's developing into that area where it was less pain. There was still the pain and I did throw up from the pain, but it was more of like a severe uncomfortability with the pain, more nausea associated with it as well, and then getting really, really hot and sweaty. And it's summertime here too, which could also have a play in it. I'm not exactly sure. That's kind of like where my journey has been. Not a lot has changed for me. I'm still experiencing all or similar of the same symptoms that I was experiencing at the beginning, and I really don't think that it's going to change much before I get this taken out of my body. My experience hasn't been great, but it hasn't been the worst that it could be. I know a lot of people who have had worse experiences on Nexplanon. I know a lot of people who have had better experiences on Nexplanon. It really just depends, and you're not going to know, sadly, until you actually put it in your body. My best friend also has it, and she has barely had her period. During the first year of her having her Nexplanon, she did not have her period at all, and then about a year and a half she started having her periods again, and now she gets them kind of on and off as I do, but without any severe cramping. I will say, when I do actually get my period and get the bleeding aspect of it, I don't have any cramping then. It's just in the in-between stages when there is no bleeding associated. So that's also another positive, is that at least I only have one symptom versus having both of them together every single month can be a lot. This is just my experience. I will say that I don't believe that I will be getting Nexplanon again after this 3 years is up. I spent a lot of money getting it in the first time because my insurance would not cover it, which is just really frustrating for me and something that I don't agree with, but a lot of you might have that same problem. Now I'm kind of playing with what I would like to do. I'm thinking about getting a non-hormonal IUD in, but a lot of my friends have had bad stories with IUDs as well. But I am someone who has been on hormonal birth control for a really, really long time, and I would like to have children eventually, not right now, but sometime in the future. And one of the risks of taking hormonal birth control is that you may make yourself infertile depending on how long you've been on it and all that kind of stuff. And so I would just like to take a break from using hormonal birth control for a little bit and let my body reset and see what happens with my cramping. Might make it worse, might make it better, I'm really not sure, but that is kind of my plan. Honestly, not a lot has changed. Having Nexplanon in for 2 years, over 2 years now, I'm surprised because I expected it to kind of level out a little bit more, but I still have no idea when I'm going to be getting my period. There's no rhyme or reason or kind of cycling that's happening in my body as far as I can tell. And so that's just kind of how it's been for me. If you've had a different experience, please leave it in the comments down below. Let me know how you guys have felt about this. If you're thinking about Nexplanon, if you have any other questions that I might be able to answer or other people might be able to answer down below. And yeah, just share your experience if you've been on Nexplanon for longer than this or a shorter amount of time. If you've had cramping before going on hormonal birth control, or you got cramping only because of hormonal birth control, let me know. I'm very curious to find out, and I'm sure it will help any people who are looking into getting this. So I would just say, you know, it's really up to you. You can weigh the rewards and the risks of the situation. But if you are thinking about using this as a way to prevent yourself from having cramping, I would say not guaranteed. If you're using it as a way to prevent yourself from having really heavy or severe periods, not guaranteed. Yeah, so I think you just have to kind of talk to your doctor and weigh the decision for yourself. But I will say that there are a lot of positives to having this birth control and just having it in your arm and being able to ignore it for 3 years, especially with a lot of the political climate that is going on with women's rights and women's bodies and all that kind of stuff. But it is really up to you, and I'm open to having people ask me questions, but again, I am not a doctor, so talk to your doctor. Alright, that was very long-winded and I apologize, but I hope you guys enjoy this video and I hope you found it helpful if you are going to be looking into getting Nexplanon, or if you are starting your journey with Nexplanon or have some questions about it. If you have any other questions, please leave them down below. If you'd like to check out my previous video, it is on this side of the screen, and my previous vlog is on that side of the screen. I will also link down below my previous video on the pros and cons of Nexplanon because that has a lot of really great information as well. Alright, I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!